Hi everyone, I'm Daniela and I'm the creative director for FAR Center for Contemporary Arts. Today we are doing our third installment of FAR Community Creators and we will be talking to Ileana Haberman-Ducey. She is an incredible embroidery artist and we're going to learn about her and her work. Hi Ileana.
Hello Daniela.
We're so excited that you're joining us today, and I'm excited to share your story and your art. Tell us about your journey in embroidery work.
Well, I've been embroidering for a while now. I guess it kind of came about when I graduated college and felt like I didn't know what to do with my life. And for some reason, I just picked up a needle and thought it would be kind of funny to embroider nude bodies, which was something I had never seen in embroidery at the time. And it turned out I really loved it. And it became a much bigger part of my life. And at this point, it was probably a source of a lot of mental health coping mechanisms, but also just a way that I feel really confident expressing how I feel in my body in the world.
So much of your embroidery work is deeply personal and about your body. I'd love to hear more about how you started stitching your body as the primary subject and how that's been therapeutic for you. Yeah.
I think there are probably two big answers to that. And the first is that what I noticed as I started taking photos and then turning them into drawings and then ultimately embroideries is that by being the observer of my body, felt really differently about my body. And that I was a lot kinder to myself, and that the parts that society tells me are problematic became my favorite parts. And that tenderness that I was able to give myself felt really, really special and like something that I needed to continue to give attention to. That's probably one of my very favorite parts about it still. And then the other part is that starting the embroidery and exploring being a queer human and what that means to be in a body as a queer human, exploring queer relationships, happened at the exact same time. And so they're really, really connected. And my body feels in a lot of ways like the only thing that I have rights to. And the only way that I feel like I can honestly, authentically tell any story. I can only tell my stories, and I can only tell my stories using this one thing that I have. So, yeah, like my own experience of my body is wrapped up exactly in beginning to stitch and feeling like delight in bodies and, exploring like all these different senses and having really confusing feelings about being an adult in intimate settings and needing somewhere to put them. So it's like this tender way that I can tell authentic stories about being myself in my specific body. That's the only thing that feels ethical and authentic to me.
Can you walk us through the process of making one of these pieces, sort of from beginning to end?
Yeah. Frustratingly or luckily, I'm not sure. I can't really ever just sit down and make it happen. So usually I will be struck by obviously a brilliant idea, like on a hike or when I wake up from a nap or whatever it is. Sometimes it's because some specific thing happens that is just something worthy of having more attention given to it. But so there's a lot of like the pre-planning process is like going on a walk for a long time, and then I usually know what it's going to look like. So then it's a process of I do take photos. They're not good photos. but I take photos so that I can get the body right. And then it's just a process of getting it onto the fabric with carbon paper. I use a lot of tracing paper. And then that process is probably like an hour or two. And then I start stitching, and that can be anywhere from 10 to 100 hours of stitching. And I find that the more meticulous, the more detailed, the longer it takes, the more excited I am about it. And so at this point, I've been doing that for a long time. And so I don't want to get bored, because I want to keep doing this for as long as possible. So it's like, how can I make it more complicated? How can I make the reward higher? It's not enough to just have a naked body anymore. So it's like, how can I make this 3D or incorporate other elements, or what's the most tedious stitch I could possibly do? And can I fill an entire background like that? Who cares how long it takes? Yeah, and then I stretch them over wood, put a frame on them, and they're done. So most of it is just sitting there literally with a hoop, stitching the tiniest stitches I can possibly stitch for as long as I can, until my hands hurt.
Tell us a little bit about how the pandemic has affected your work these days.
Well, in the beginning, it kind of eliminated it entirely. The sad part about the pandemic and other like very life-changing things is that sometimes, even though I know I need to be stitching to calm myself down and take care of myself, there's times where it's just not possible. And so the pandemic was really scary, because I couldn't possibly do anything for a long time except like the bare minimum of taking care of myself. But I don't know, maybe I took enough hikes or something, but I have been much busier since the summer hit. I don't know if the terror just normalized or something, but I have been making new work about the pandemic, or about the feelings that I had in the pandemic, which are not all bad. Some of it is positive in terms of like really loving alone time, or just enjoying being in nature and slowing down, but also feeling really, really on edge all the time. So I'm trying to make a few pieces that kind of capture different aspects of things that I feel about the pandemic. So I shared one with you that is a crazy quilt, which I also liked quilts like for fun, not like the embroidery, that's more serious, but every once in a while, like I come from a long line of quilters. So a crazy quilt is very chaotic, and it's called a crazy quilt. And I did feel like very just on edge all the time. So I took a crazy quilt and made it around this body, which took forever because the pieces are like this big. And then there's a long tradition of really beautiful embroidery on crazy quilts, usually velvet crazy quilts. So I just kind of thought a little bit about that, but really it's about just feeling like I have no control and I'm terrified. And so how can I put that into an embroidery that actually does ultimately make me feel pretty calm, even though its roots are in not feeling calm at all. And then I sent you one that is a murmuration where the birds fly together, which I got to see one time a couple of years ago over a gas station in Martinsville, of all places. And for me, a murmuration is like, I don't understand. It's just one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. But like thinking about it in a pandemic of just like trying to let go of all these things I don't have control over and just kind of be in this moment. So like what's going on in the natural world or in the world of patterns that I can somehow use to convey like I feel out of control and I just have to be okay with that. So I'm working on one right now that's about turtles, because turtles feel very safe in their homes and I only feel safe in my home. And I keep running across turtles on my hikes and they're, boxed up, just like the sweetest little bundles of social distancing. And their shells are just amazing. So I'm working on a piece about turtles and how I feel like a turtle. I mean, some of them are kind of silly concepts, but so maybe I don't always share everything. But so the pandemic has definitely made me think more about slowing down.
Can you talk through the calendar that you created?
The calendar, I created the calendar for 2020, but I started the pieces in 2018, and it took 2 years to make the 12. There's a cover too, so 13 pieces for the calendar. Took 2 years. I didn't realize it was going to happen until about maybe in May. I realized that I had something that looked like a series. This pandemic stuff might be one of the first times that I intentionally was like, I want a few pieces, like I want 9 pieces, and they're all going to be themed. Normally I just make something and then I make something else and then I make a third thing, and then you're like, oh, these are telling a story here that I didn't realize I was telling.
How can the community support you as an artist right now during the pandemic?
Well, I definitely have grand plans to have sales now and then, or have work in local shops. Nothing is happening right now, but I also am kind of interested in teaching an embroidery class, and I don't know exactly what that would look like. It would depend on how many humans were interested.
Yeah, make sure you follow Ileana on Instagram or check out her website to see the entire body of work, see more of her pieces, and stay tuned for possible shows once we can do art shows again.
It'll happen someday.
Yeah. My last question for you, since our series is about Bloomington and local artists, is share with us anything that you particularly love about Bloomington, or maybe just how you ended up here, what you love about it.
I've been in Bloomington for a very long time. I did come here at an elementary age and have, for the most part, stayed since then, a few years here and there. So I consider myself a local. It's really hard right now to think of anything other than how grateful I am that there are so many beautiful spaces to go to within an hour of Bloomington, that I hope that because of the pandemic, other people are figuring that out too. But there are just, it is so beautiful here, if you know where to look. And that has been such a huge part of my 2020 experience. It's just taking my ridiculous dog to the woods and splashing in water with her. We live in such a beautiful place. Yeah. So, there's other things too, but they feel so far away that I don't even remember what I used to do in my life besides to sew and hang out with my dog. But those things are pretty sweet. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing and for letting us take a look at your work and hear your story. And we'll be back next month with another community creator. So thanks, Ileana.
Thank you.
Bye.